This is a bit weird because this isn't Lee speaking. This is Gwilym speaking. Lee, unfortunately, is a bit poorly. Not poorly enough to stop sending me loads of texts about how I need to run this blooming podcast. But sadly, he's a bit ill. So we wish him all the best. We've got some fantastic news because not only do I get to run the show for once, but also we have a stand-in magnificent co-host, Neil Lampert. Neil, say hi and introduce yourself.
Hi, Gwilym. Yeah, glad to be here. Apologies to the listeners on 3 counts, I suppose. Sorry I'm not Lee, which might disorientate a few people.
No, we all are. We're all sorry we're not Lee. I understand that one.
Sorry I've got poor audio. I haven't got a professional mic like you and Lee have. And I may have to leave early because I've actually pre-booked on a police speed awareness course later. So I do have to leave for that. I've got a hard finish.
What did you do, Neil? What did you do?
You know what? There is a story about this because I was only doing something like 28 in a 20 limit. It was in Crystal Palace, and I'd taken my son to a Palace game, and we were driving away from the stadium. And as we were driving away, a Lamborghini driven by a Palace player who should remain nameless roared past us like an absolute rocket. Must have been breaking the speed limit. And yeah, I spoke to my boy about it. And then a month later, I get a ticket through saying that I've been doing 28 in a 20 limit. I can't believe it.
Lee Davis and Gwilym Roberts are the Two IPs in a Pod, and you are listening to a podcast on intellectual property, brought to you by the Chartered Institute of Patent Attorneys.
Well, normally we talk about tortoises, which obviously go very slow.
Yeah,
so it's a nice change of pace. No tortoise. I gather you don't. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, another apology that you don't have a tortoise.
Gerbil.
There you go. What's your gerbil called?
Gizmo.
Great name. Very appropriate for this kind of podcast, and leads us beautifully into talking about our inventors and our attorney specialists today. And perhaps we can start off. Martyn, would you mind introducing yourself and HydroHertz?
Yeah, hello. I'm Martyn. Founded HydroHertz a couple of years ago, based on a thermal management system that I had a kind of concept for originally and took it from there. So yeah, sadly I'm not on a speediness awareness course today, but that's my introduction.
Thanks very much. I've done the speed awareness course as well, and it was quite helpful for a while, but I forgot all the numbers again because the one that irritates me is that white sign with a black line through it, and you're supposed to know the speed limit based on that, and I can never work out it's all based on how many lampposts there are or something. So I just rely on Waze telling me how fast I should be going now, but that's slightly irrelevant to today's conversation. We'll come back to a lot more about HydroHertz. Let's also introduce Cory. Cory, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm Cory. I'm a patent attorney at Adamson Jones in Nottingham, and I am Martyn's attorney for his concept that we're going to discuss.
Excellent. The reason that we're actually doing a series of chats, we've got some really good innovations coming up to talk about over the next few podcasts. That's triggered to a large extent by the Earthshot Prize, which we'll be coming back to as well. But Neil, perhaps you can fill listeners in if they're not familiar. We've done podcasts about it, but people dip in and out. Tell everyone about the Earthshot and where it fits in with this one.
Yeah, of course. So the Earthshot Prize is said to be the world's most prestigious environmental awards programme, and CIPA has been involved. Keen watchers of CIPA communications will know we've been involved right from the start. So it started by Prince William's Royal Foundation in 2020. Every year it awards 5 prizes of £1 million each to the winners in 5 categories. So the categories are, just quickly, protect and restore nature, clean our air, revive our oceans, build a waste-free world, and fix our climate. And we were delighted to submit HydroHertz this year in the Clean Our Air category. So, Gwilym, I know you like to say that CIPA has contact with every inventor in the UK and beyond. So, because of that, I think that's recognised by the Earthshot organisers. And the past couple of years, we've joined the official nominator system for Earthshot. And last year we actually had 3 finalists out of the 15 and one eventual winner, which was seaweed packaging geniuses Notpla in the Build a Waste-Free World. So we've got a pretty good track record.
Definitely, obviously we chatted to Notpla on this very podcast, so it was a fantastic story, although I think we got carried away about the concept of underwater combine harvesters at one point, but it was still really interesting what they got up to and very exciting. And I think they said one of the kind of add-ons, £1 million not to be sniffed at, but also Prince William guarantees you 1 meeting with anyone you want in the world, which is also quite spectacular. So there's quite a lot. There's a lot coming out of that. So Martyn, can you tell us a bit about the product that you've got forward and its kind of genesis?
Yes. So the product really, basically the thermal management system for electric vehicles, not just cars, but obviously aviation, buses, any form of transport really. And the purpose behind that was the downside to electric vehicles, specifically at the time, and even still quite relevant now, is in colder climates, the efficiency of the vehicles plummets. Now, as we know, electric cars don't have a great range. Some of them do offer 300-400 miles, but in the colder climates, they can drop by what studies have found 50%, so half of that. So if you've got a car that's only doing, let's say, 200 miles, in a colder climate, you've got a 100-mile range, and then you've got to wait 3 or 4 hours for that to charge. You have got the fast charging options, but not everyone's got them at work or at home. You've got them on the service stations and whatnot, but they're still kind of 30 minutes onwards. So we looked into it and thought, can we make this any better? And it started with 2 articles I read, to be honest. So one was about heat pumps for domestic buildings, which was air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps. And the other one was obviously the article about the inefficiencies behind electric cars. And I thought to myself, why can't you, it sounds kind of mad when I say it, but why can't you put a ground source heat pump, which are more efficient than air source heat pumps, in vehicles? And that's where it began. I thought, right, let's have a look. And that's where I started to come up with the concept of using the passengers in the vehicles as one of the heat sources, because obviously we're thermal batteries, effectively the same as ground. So we use that as one heat source plus everything else. And that's really kind of what we do and kind of get a better efficiency than other systems that are out there. And also we enhance charge time. So it kind of brings everything as one and makes it a lot more appealing in the end to buy an electric car.
No, I can see why Earthshot like the sound of this. What we often discover is that there's that massive gap between the initial idea and getting something up and working and everything else. How is the development process going?
Yeah, so that's been challenging because on paper it's been a lot easier than actually building it. But we got a bit of funding from Midlands Aerospace Alliance, to be honest. So they run a thing called the Aerospace Up Programme, who have partially funded a demonstrator build. So we've got the demonstrator built. Now, from simulation, we know what we're aiming to achieve, but obviously we understand that the real world data will be completely different to the simulation. So we've got it now built up and pretty much ready for testing, the demonstrator model, which we can then obviously, we can't really say anything as fact at the moment. So we can't say, right, we're this efficient compared to other systems until we've got all the data back off obviously the demonstrator model. So that's built and ready for testing. We had a bit of a setback because we was hoping to have it tested and finalised before the end of April. But where we're getting the hardware from, there's a lead time of 8 weeks. So yeah, the hardware and software is that's what's delaying us now, sadly.
Well, realities are awful. But it's good news about the demonstrator model coming together. And I want to come back to the investment and funding thing, actually, because that's, again, one of the big challenges is, how to bridge the gap between the initial idea and getting near to market. But I wanted to bring Cory in at that moment, actually, and just kind of say, well, how did you guys kind of get linked up? And what's the IP side? How's that all going?
Yeah, it was quite interesting, actually. So Martyn initially came to us with a patent application that he'd filed himself at the UK Patent Office, had got a search report back from the UK office that basically said he couldn't have a patent. Excuse me. Basically said that he couldn't have a patent because his concept was already out there and published elsewhere. But with the caveat that he should contact a professional because patents are complex and difficult. and that he should seek advice on that front, which was probably the saving grace, I guess, because Martyn came and said, I don't think these documents the UK Patent Office have cited do what I do. Can you have a look? So we kind of took that on, reviewed that for him, and a few months later, refiled his application in slightly different language, and got a really positive search report back for the same concept, saying, yeah, this hasn't been done before. You can have a patent, just for a bit of rewording, and hope Martyn doesn't mind me saying, slightly more professionally done, perhaps, but
not at all.
So yeah, a real kind of tale of how to kind of play the UK patent system, perhaps. And then we kind of from there, because of such positive news, have filed a PCT application, which is still pending as we speak. So yeah, we're now looking further out into overseas protection as well.
That's great news, Martyn. How did you find the patent drafting experience?
For my drafting, dreadful, to be honest. I had no idea. Far too deep in there for myself. But I thought I'd done okay until obviously I got the correspondence back and thought, yeah, maybe it's time to seek some professional advice.
Had you heard about, you knew about prior art, things like that, Martyn, did you?
I knew about nothing, no. So I went in totally blind, and actually didn't really kind of naively understand how complex it was. So yeah, I mean, the saving grace was, to be honest, that we had the search report back, and then I had contact from them, one of the search examiners, and kind of, she said, I think you should seek professional advice. Now, without that, I'd probably have gave up on the idea and thought, right, okay, I can't get around this. I don't know how to do it. So yeah, I kind of done a little bit of research, and everything pointed me in the direction of Adamson Jones. So I thought I'd give them a call, and yeah, about 2 years later, here we are.
That's good on the IPO. They do look after unrepresented applicants really well. Funny, this is not the topic of this session at all, but Cory, I don't know what you think. I mean, you still see encouragement for people to file their own patent applications, but it is, as you say, Martyn, quite complex. But I mean, when you get to the European Patent Office, they're brutal these days. Sorry, EPO, they are brutal. You need to really know the tricks of the trade these days in some of these offices, in a way that, I mean, I've been doing this for quite a while. I think it's got more difficult even for the professionals, let alone people who haven't done it before. Cory, I don't know what you've seen on that front.
Yeah, we're kind of, Martyn's definitely not the only client that we've had or got in this kind of context. The UK IPO are particularly good at, like you say, helping out those that don't know how it works. Which often, like I say, they're not as useful to us as patent attorneys, or as kind to us as patent attorneys. But it's, yeah, we have a few that have come through with letters that basically say, yeah, you need to seek professional advice, but here's what you should do, here's what you should ask them, here's how to go about that, here's where you might find them, and what to think of when you're looking for them. So they are really useful in that sense. And yeah, without slating the EPO too much, they are kinder than the EPO for sure.
Yeah. I mean, EPO is there to help, but it's just the rules are getting so weird. Anyway, it's different.
Another day.
Don't start me. That is great news, and the PCT systems is there for you. Martyn, did you find it helped kind of getting the investments and the funding in place, having the patent application there?
Yeah, it gave a bit more kind of confidence in the funding side for us. Because it's such a kind of unique technology that I've designed, it's had mixed reviews. So it's not had the best reviews at some stage. People have kind of thought, yeah, is this really going to work? Other people have kind of just, passed me off onto other people, and I've gone from pillar to post. And then obviously with the funding that we received, that was kind of more secured on the fact we have the patent there, and we did have a feasibility study carried out. So it was kind of, yeah, we knew it could work. If it was engineered correctly, we knew it could work. But yeah, it's definitely been important having the IP there, to be honest. Without that, you can't really do a lot without that, because you can't trust anyone. You go into research institutes, and obviously you don't know how they're going to react to it. So without having all that in place, it's been an important step for me, to be honest, securing that there.
Martyn, can you explain to me, as a sort of a non-technical person, a little bit about how the actual thermal management system works? Are there two elements to it? Am I right? There was this heat capture system, and then there's the pump.
Yeah, so it's it is, yeah, sort of right. So it's it's effectively just a re-engineered heat pump system. Now we use on our system, so imagine it's a fridge in reverse. So rather than cooling kind of everything, we can heat, and obviously we can cool as well. We bidirectional. So we capture heat from different sources. There's a lot of waste heat goes off on electric vehicles. So you've got waste heat from motors, you've got waste heat from brakes, electronics, and also from passengers. So at certain times, we always provide a set temperature, or and them seats just overheat and overheat. I mean, even in a cold day, you can get out and your back's still quite clammy. And I thought, well, why can't we use that as a waste heat source as well? Obviously, the more heat sources that you've got and you can collect heat from, the more efficient the system naturally becomes. There's nothing clever on that, kind of engineering wise. So we designed it that way and kept it as a giant heat pump. So most companies use kind of the heat pump system, but then they have like heat exchange units in, and they change so they can obviously run a water cooled circuit, an oil cooled circuit, or even an air cooled circuit through the heat exchangers off the heat pump. But with that, the heat transfer declines. So every time you've got another heat exchange unit, it gets less and less efficient the more you've got. Plus, they also utilize water pumps to push all that through, or fan motors to push air through, and so on. So we've done ours where we've basically got a very clever way of a kind of a unique valve arrangement. So our valve technically kind of diverts the refrigerant as and when we need it as a coolant or as a heat fluid through where we need it, but doesn't use any additional kind of wattage of energy from the battery or extra draw because of how we've done it. So that runs at about 4 watts an hour. But you only ever use it for, as and when you need it. And that's where, that's where it gets a bit more complex when we go into the valve sort of arrangement. But I don't know if that helped you at all, but that was the best I could explain it.
No, I'm trying to follow that, but I kind of get it. Yeah.
Cory might be better to explain it because I'm terrible at explaining, but Cory's got a better way of wording it.
I guess I should have a go now that you've put me on the spot. Essentially, yeah, Martyn did capture there probably more detailed than I would go into on the basis of his expert knowledge. But essentially, we're taking heat from the kind of, in the unique sense, we're taking heat from the body via the seats of the vehicle and transferring that into the heat pump system to heat fluid, if you like, which can then be used to heat other parts of the vehicle, such as the battery or the aircon, if you want heat into the car itself. And by using the heat of the passenger to transfer that heat elsewhere, you're using heat that's already in the system rather than having to generate heat that you'd use the battery to kind of heat up. So you've then saving the battery for what you need it for, i.e. to do mileage, rather than using it to create a heater in the car or to heat the battery itself.
Kind of a circular system.
Yeah, that's it. So you're using heat you've already got rather than generating heat via the battery.
Does it give stats on who's the hottest person in the car?
That might be a nice adaptation. Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll get a patent for that. But
sorry, more sensible question. There's a lot going on with that. And again, in the development stage, you've got the funding coming in to keep it going. You've got all that R&D work going on. Actually, first question: how big is the team you've got working on this?
So here's where it surprised a lot of people. It's just myself. We do have a little bit of help from the University of Nottingham. We have a working partnership with them, and I've obviously utilised student placements and interns in the past. But the company itself and the development of it all is just me, which is proven tricky and challenging.
Imagine, are you getting much sleep?
Not at all. No, not much sleep. No. I'm trying to balance everything right, but kind of a few more months, and I think that the main development of it and the testing's over, and then I can sleep a bit better then.
Oh, fantastic! And Cory, in terms of that development, certainly my experience has always been that so many more inventions crop up as you start solving problems. I mean, I can imagine there's a control system element of this. There's all kinds of feather valves and the conduits and everything else. I mean, how are you kind of keeping the IP under control and keeping the patents in the right shape?
Yeah, that's it. So naturally, the kind of core concept itself even has developed slightly over time. And there's been a lot of going back to the original patent to check that it still covers what Martyn wants to do and might do in the future. And thankfully it does, for now at least. And yeah, like you said, there's also a kind of few modifications that have come from that that we probably can't discuss too much in this one on the basis we've either not filed or not published yet. But yeah, there are quite a few that come from that naturally. And it's been quite a balancing act, hasn't it, Martyn, in terms of when to file, when to spend money on the modifications rather than the core concept. So yeah, there's a lot to kind of consider in there, and it has been a task. And hopefully we've got that balance right.
Kind of brings us back a bit to the funding point, doesn't it? I mean, Martyn, you mentioned you've had this, you've had the Midlands Aerospace, whatever. Thank you very much, Midlands Aerospace. Love it. Great support and everything. Is it a battle out there getting the funding that you need? How are you finding it?
Yeah, to be honest, it is. Yeah. Now I'm in a position where, obviously, as I've said, it's just myself, so it's self-funded, and then we get, effectively 45% funding back, but that's capped at a certain amount. So it's hard to kind of think, right, we want to do this or want to do that, because obviously the more kind of, the more conversation in Cory have, for example, the more things we want to file patents for or have filed, that builds up price, and it's a challenge to kind of get it all balanced perfectly financially. And then obviously, effectively, we do need more help on the system itself, but we can't afford the more help. We can't afford the expertise. So it's kind of been a bit of a challenge on that aspect. And to secure more funding at a later stage, it just brings us back to the same initial problems, that it's got to be partially funded. So it would be nice to say we can go somewhere and get 100% funding or 70% funding, which brings the cost down a bit. But that doesn't seem to go to companies such as myself, the smaller kind of companies. It goes to the ones who have got much more going off, much more staff to kind of look after. So it's been a challenge.
That's interesting. I mean, I think we've got a government at the moment with an innovation strategy. Lots of talk about us being a science superpower, but we're way behind places like the US, I think, where you've got angel investors and venture capitalists and all kinds of different models. There's more liquidity in terms of funding, I think, elsewhere, possibly. Cory, I know what your kind of experience of this has been.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess particularly with the patent system, it's a bit of a vicious circle in terms of you need money to file a patent, but you need to file a patent application before you kind of release to the world your concept. And sometimes you don't know if you're going to make money until you've released your concept to the world and got that backing. So it is a vicious circle of funding the IP in the first place and getting that back later on, or not getting that back later on. And Martyn, I know, has got hundreds of ideas, some in very different areas even, that we've just kind of have to say it's not the top of our priority list at the minute, based on that lack of funding until this takes off or until we can release it to the world. So yeah, it is tricky.
Actually, because I was checking out your website, and there's a bunch of other ideas here as well, Martyn. It's really frustrating not being able to just kind of do all of them at once.
It's very frustrating. Yeah, it's very frustrating. I don't switch off. So no matter what it is, I have more or less an idea a day. I've got a full notepad of ideas, and they're all, for me, they're all feasible, good ideas that can help it. Everything is kind of around. They're all in different sectors and industries, but obviously they all help people effectively. That's what they do. But yeah, to not have the funding to say, right, let's put a patent on this, let's explore this, let's research and develop this further. That keeps me up more at night than the actual project that we've got going on at the minute, to be honest, sometimes.
Yeah, and the demonstrator that you've got, Martyn, is that what stage is that at? Is that central to moving forwards?
Yeah, so that's built and working. We've had it working, we've had it kind of doing what we need to do, but we just can't really showcase it as yet until we've got all the data collected. So, we can turn and say we've got a higher COP than our competitors, we do this compared to other people, we can do this. But the problem is, from me saying that, it's a biased view. So we need a third party kind of data collection on that to say, yes, what you're saying, this system does do. And then there's more kind of for me, it gives me more confidence showcasing that as well. So you can go to potential investors or potential clients and say, look, we've got this data from a third party, completely independent of ourselves. That's what they've told us it does. This is what we say it does. That both aligns up there. And then hopefully that'll bring in a lot of interest. From what sector, I don't know, because obviously we'd like investors to help us move forward. We'd like kind of collaborations to move forward, but it depends on who sees the interest and who sees the benefit to themselves, I suppose.
And again, it's another vicious circle, a bit like the patent one, which is the funding one. Is I need funding to get up to a point where I can show you that I merit funding. You know what I mean? Get the product there. That's tricky to break through that. I mean, this again, I think we can use this kind of platform, Neil, a little bit to put that plea out to government to say, look, there's some fantastic innovations out there. A bit more support, either with government money or with creating a framework for better investment. It would seem to make a lot of sense.
In a way,
sorry,
go on, Gwilym. No, you go.
I was going to say about the investment thing. No, you go. No, I'll keep going. The challenge with the investment things also interesting, Martyn, isn't it? Because you've got to take a view on what you give up, don't you? Currently you kind of own a lot of this. You're being funding matched and everything. People are going to come along and say, well, yeah, I'll fund you, but I want this much for stake in the business. And I guess that's always a difficult decision point as well.
That is a difficult decision. And I do think about this often because I kind of put myself in a position where I think, right, we're getting closer to that stage. So I've got to be ready for that stage. And if I'm totally honest, I'm not sure how that would go. I mean, look, I've got to look at it in different aspects. I've got a lot of ideas that I want to progress further. So I need somebody on board with not so much just this concept, but with me, understanding the kind of vision that I have for the future and what I'd like to do. But then at what kind of, what funding level do you kind of ask for on that, and what percentage do you give away? There's always room for negotiation. But the funding, it's I think on that one as well, I'd have to take some serious professional advice on that, because it's completely out of my realm as such.
Well, I do know that Sir James Dyson, made his first fortune with a totally different invention, which was the big orange ball on the front of the wheelbarrow. That was, I believe that was what he actually came up with first. Made a load of money out of that, and then used that to fund. He's obviously an ideas guy as well. Use that to fund a huge raft, obviously, of all the stuff that we see now. So there you go. Just read his book. I'm sure there is one.
All I was going to add to this is that, in a way, this is where the Earthshot Prize comes in. It kind of fills that void, doesn't it? That funding gap. They're filling a really important sort of hole in the system, I guess, in terms of environmental innovation.
What stage of the process are you at with that? I'm not familiar with the kind of application process.
So we go out to all our members at the start of every year and make an appeal for any clients with incredible environmental innovations. And this year we got, I think, more than 30 responses, including HydroHertz. And so we then spend sort of best part of a week going through them and forwarding the best to the Earthshot Prize. Most go through, to be honest. And then it's up to the Earthshot and their shortlisting process. And I think they make a shortlisting announcement in November. So we won't get any more news for a while yet.
Okay, so you're in kind of fairly long-term waiting mode. But presumably, I mean, hopefully by then you'll have more data, be further along with the demonstrator, everything else. So that could be relevant. We have someone listening in who's got away with murder so far by not having to say anything. So, Rachel, I know you're there. You're with Cory, but on the marketing side. Presumably, being involved in the Earthshot Prize and that kind of thing, it is a sort of story that a firm would like to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great to have a client like HydroHertz, like Martyn, that we can, that we've been able to put forward for nomination for the Earthshot Prize. I was particularly excited when I spoke to Martyn about the technology that he's working on as a person that drives an electric car, and always having to put the heated seats on and the heated steering wheel on in the winter, because the husband won't let me put the aircon on and the heater on because it drains the battery. So I was delighted that Martyn's working on this technology. And also, we've kind of been talking about, the struggles that, the smaller companies, the startup companies face when they're trying to launch and commercialize technology. So I think, something like the Earthshot Prize, like Neil was saying, it's just a perfect thing for us to be able to support Martyn with, and with the support of CIPA in nominating him as well.
Well, I'm fingers crossed for all of it. And Martyn, I hope you don't actually explode with all the stuff you're trying to do. And so all these other concepts, if there's anything you're able to, don't disclose anything that you get in trouble for patent application reasons, but which one would you go for next in terms of all those projects? What's one you'd love to spend your time on?
It's a good question. I think most beneficial to the environment would be the biofilter that we've done. That one I've spoke to Cory about before, and it's on the back burner until this one's out of the way, really. But sure. That one's beneficial for air pollution, really. So it's designed basically to put in your cities, put in towns, even on the side of motorways, really, and it can absorb the kind of emissions and bring them back into good nitrogen, air, and so on, oxygen and whatnot. So that's one there, beneficial. But the other one is, so I can't give too much information away on this, but
I was looking really nervous.
Yeah, can you feel me kicking you under a table from this room?
So the next one really would be probably a choice of two. One of those is our kind of drivetrain. So I've got to word this carefully. So it's a drivetrain for, obviously, again, electric transport, but recuperates a better kind of percentage of lost energy through something similar to like regenerative braking on electric cars, but done in a totally different way. So that's as much as I can probably give on that one.
Yeah, I think that's safe.
But then the other one is a recent idea. I don't actually think Cory knows about it, but it's obviously the future's heading towards air taxis and whatnot. And I've got an idea sort of for air taxis and sort of for the infrastructure of air taxis, a bit of everything combined, that could be more beneficial than what's currently on offer. I mean, the air taxis that are there at the minute, they've got a very high price tag. So it's going to be a very similar system as kind of helicopters. They're kind of more for the rich and the famous. They're not for the average person. But I want to bring that in line with almost like an air taxi sort of railway system. So we've got an affordable route of transport that's obviously low on the emissions, safe for the environment, and bring it into an affordable kind of infrastructure. I can't give any more on that.
No. Again, Cory's looking happy with this so far. Well done.
Yeah, I can't even verify that one. But
Cory must be a great fan. This sounds like quite a roller coaster working with Martyn, trying to keep up with all the ideas.
Yeah.
How do you keep them under control?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we talk quite regularly, don't we? About where we are with current affairs and what's next in the pipeline. And when we can kind of revisit them and what dates we need to revisit them and that kind of thing in terms of, when you might need to do something with them. And I mean, it keeps me on my toes, absolutely. But it's also really cool that they are A, environmentally friendly, which is obviously a good area to work in, but B, obviously also in quite different technologies. As a patent attorney, it's quite nice to have different clients in different areas that you can kind of work with, but quite uniquely, Martyn is a single client in a lot of different areas. So it's always interesting.
Keeps you on your toes as well, because I think patent attorneys often end up as, to a certain extent, low-level business advisors as well, which is fascinating. And we can do that on the basis that we've seen so many of these things with different. It's more from experience of having seen things before, but that also, I guess, keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really easy as a patent attorney just to kind of turn the wheel and do the patent work and that's it, and not see the kind of end result or where it's going project wise. So again, working quite closely with Martyn, it's quite nice to see exactly what the IP is having an effect on and what effect that's having in a kind of business strategy requirement, which is really cool.
And can I just jump in, Gwilym?
Of course.
Martyn, your biofilter idea, was that, I'm looking at your website again, were you on Jeremy Vine's show talking about that?
Yeah, so this was before I knew Cory, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I probably gave a little bit too much away on that than I should have done. But we're still safe. We are still safe. So yeah, at the time I probably mentioned a little bit too much, but as you can tell, I kind of enjoy talking, so I just got to stop myself sometimes. But yeah, that took some great feedback from the Jeremy Vine show. It was just a call in, to be honest. They was doing a show about kind of environmental friendly technologies, and I just called in and we had a chat. They had an expert on there as well, and then from there, it kind of grew a little bit of interest, which made me think, right, this is something I need to look into further, because I had quite a lot of kind of messages coming through on LinkedIn and other social media. So there was obviously, there's asking, are you the guy that was on the radio earlier? And then asked for more information, more detail. So there's a lot of interest in that. But again, as mentioned earlier, it's kind of that circle where you've got to free up funding and kind of balance the funding as well from project to project. So you've got to kind of see what's there. So at the minute, that's on the back burner, but it's allowed me time to develop it further, which I think for Cory would make the process of everything a lot easier. And it's changed from the original kind of concept that I had, which again makes it easier because you're not having to refer back to the patent to see if that change has now effectively, wiped out the patent that you've had. So so that got good feedback, and I thought, right, that's one that we need to push forward. So fingers crossed in the future that's one of the next projects.
Well, we're going to start probably time to wind up a little bit. It's really interesting to hear what's going on. Your energy levels are off the scale. That's magnificent. I love it. You keep hold of that notebook because it sounds quite valuable. Watch out, industrial espionage. They're going to be raiding your house for the notebook of ideas. And obviously, good luck with the Earthshot Prize as it progresses. At this point, Lee would normally be rolling out his question of the podcast, and I'll do that in a second. But hopefully we'll have Lee back soon. I think, Neil, we've proved we can cope without him. We can do this, but we don't need you, Lee. We do need you. Get well soon, Lee, because he said he will be listening and probably critiquing. Bless him. But anyway, it has been really good. I was wondering about a question. I suppose so Martyn, I'm projecting forwards for you. HydroHertz, the concept one kicks off, and electric vehicles take on your product big time, and the range and all the things that Rachel was talking about for the consumer come through, and you've got your first kind of great fortune. What are you going to blow it on?
Well, that's where I differ to a lot of people. So I've never been one that kind of wants or needs money. I've not been one to chase money. It's kind of, I have these ideas, and it's easier for me not for the value of them, but more for kind of like the mental state of me, kind of the mental health, to kind of let them out and follow them through. So this is hopefully the idea is that this one will kind of be the footings as such, the foundation of the next project. So I'll blow it on a lot more IP, hopefully, in the right areas.
Good answer.
Yeah, and a lot more kind of technical expertise, to be honest. I mean, Cory doesn't realise it, but he's been indirectly a bit of a board advisor, because obviously, as I mentioned earlier, it's just been me that's been doing it. So Cory's had to ask or answer some kind of technical questions, even though he didn't realise he was helping me on certain things. He thought it was IP related. So yeah.
Cory, sounds like you're doing an amazing job for Martyn. So on behalf of all the patent attorneys out there who respect their peers doing a good job, thank you very much. It's great to hear, and it's lovely to. I mean, there's so many nice bits about this kind of story. It's great that it's technology, it's sustainability, which is more and more important, and it's also about actually helping individual innovators come through. And the system can be a little bit loaded against that, I think, sometimes, as we've discussed on, for example, the funding front. So thanks for all that. But you're not escaping the question. You've made your first packet. What are you blowing it on?
This is still back to me.
No, it's back to Martyn. So Cory now.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I'm making a packet out of Martyn's invention necessarily, but if I am, I'll take it. I would.
You'll be looked after, Cory.
Oh, well, thank you. Very good question. I hadn't thought that'd come to me. I would. I mean, I'm getting married next month, so perhaps we'll blow it on that. We'll blow it on a wedding and a honeymoon.
Oh, your wife needs to hear this podcast.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of brownie points. Well played.
In good books there.
Well played. No, lovely answer. Rachel, I know you're there. I'll let you think for a minute in case you think you got away with it. You ready?
Yes. Yeah, I also didn't think this question was coming to me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What would I blow it on? I'd go somewhere exotic. Basically.
Hot or cold?
A bit of both.
Ooh.
Yeah, bit of skiing, and then somewhere to unwind afterwards on the beach.
I'm happy to make loads of money and I'm just taking ideas down here. Neil, what are you doing?
I don't even have to think about it. I'd buy an Arsenal season ticket. I'm a simple man.
He was ready. Yeah. I'm supposed to answer it myself. I don't get away with it, and I would actually just take a year off and learn to play electric guitar really, really well. That's what I would love to do.
You play the bass pretty well.
No, I don't. I stand at the back and I turn the volume down a bit. Don't worry. But thank you very much. Well taken. Martyn, Cory, Neil, thank you very much. Rachel, lovely to meet you all. This has been really exciting. We're doing a series of shot discussions now. And I think this is the first one. It bodes well for the rest because it's been a really lovely story. Good luck with it all. Neil, thanks very much for your support. Good luck with the
Pleasure.
Speed awareness course.
God. Dreading it.